Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Hello, recorded on February 17th, 2021. Good evening, Franklin.
I'm actually just waking up, Edward. So good morning, Edward.
Good. I went to bed last night, sort of late. I went to bed at 8:35. But I've been up since
late. Yeah.
It is late for me. I've been up since about what time did I wake up this morning? I think 5 o'clock. Pretty typical. And I get up, I meditate. I'm not running because it's too cold. It was like cold being relative. I'm in Georgia, but it was 23 this morning when I thought about going out for a run when the sun finally came up around 7:30. But it's just so crazy. It went from that temperature and the temperature prior, it was snowing and had flurries and sleet the day before. But the day before that, we had thunderstorms, high rain, and tornado warnings. And then the next day we had snow. Then it was freezing overnight where the retention pond in the back of my house was frozen over to end up being 55 today, sun and all out, and then raining for 3 days. It's, it could be worse. I got peers and comrades and friends and family in Texas, and they are having a time of it right now. They're having a time. So I to our listeners that are in those parts of the country that are being affected by this, please take care of yourself best you can. Look out for others, right? You may be safe, but someone else may not be safe. Please check up on them. Don't assume. Because I got, family in Little Rock, it's still snowing. Friends and family in Memphis, still snowing. And they're not used to this in a manner, right? So, weather. How are you doing?
Busy week. So I'm going to bring up something that's annoying me. I mean, it's going to sound pretty petty compared to what other people are going through, but my domain name actually has a dash in it, right? So what I'm finding now is that a lot of sites are not accepting my email address anymore because they're concerned that the dash, that I'm actually trying to do some sort of SQL injection. So a lot of sites now are actually not allowing, because of course they need to have the work email address, not, your personal one, but they're not accepting it because it has a dash in it, which is a legal domain name. So,
don't you own the domain name that doesn't have a dash?
But that's not the point.
Okay.
The point is it's a legal domain name. So these companies need to figure out a way to deal with the fact that domain names have dashes in it.
So in the famous words of Franklin Grimberg, do you want to be right or do you want your email to go through? I mean, just create an alias, man, or something.
I got to tell you, I was actually signing up for this one other site, and the thing that I was signing up for did not actually give me a, that it was a bad email, but I never got their confirmation email or what I needed to do to the next steps to register. Now I'm like, oh yeah, they were actually stripping out the dash in my domain name. These paranoid cybersecurity people, unbelievable.
I know. I mean, who would go into cybersecurity as a career? I mean, you got to be daft to do that type of stuff, right? But hey, worse things have happened. I knocked out a bunch of stuff. Sort of put myself a training thing. I've figured out the 2 courses I want to take from the SANS. They offered a couple of new ones, but I'm still going to do the 508, and I'm going to do the new cloud one, I think, because it's cheap and it's probably easy to slam dunk just to get that certification, right? And reinforce, made up a word. Reinforce some of the stuff. But that's good. Hey, guess what?
Go
the
ahead.
basement's done.
Ah, there you go.
And they still haven't got stuff right. I'm having, one issue that I believe that people are not giving me the total story. And I think that because I don't do this for a living, they think they can just sort of say something, then I will accept it. I hate when skilled craftsmen think they can just say something to you, you take it as face value as though you don't have other people in your circle who's going to go back and validate them. And I'm a person that respects everybody's craft, right? I don't ever fault a person for getting their money, right? Before I went bald, I paid my barber top dollar to do something I could not do. I paid everybody from AC, HVAC, landscapers, insurance people. If you say this is your rate and you're highly skilled, who am I to tell you that you are too expensive? Because I'm paying you for the top of the line service. But don't talk to me as though I'm some curmudgeon. And even if I don't know how, I can't go talk to people that are part of my inner circle, colleagues I've used in the past to go back. And if you are so sensitive to your craft, let me tell you something about my job. One percent of my job is to come in and do what you tell me to do on a statement of work, right? Right? Do it. 99% of my job is to make you understand that I deliver as what you ask and I deliver outstanding customer service. The tech is easy, but I want you to feel comfortable. And there is a limit, but within reason, I should be able to explain this to you where you feel confident to say yes. Because I can go talk about 15 things, Frank, and you're one of the more intelligent and well-read people that I know, you wouldn't have a clue, right? And even people are like, why are you talking string theory and quantum mechanics? Because I was a physics, minor, right? And I thought being an astrophysicist, because I was a big fan of Carl Sagan, was going to make me rich. So I realized there's no money in it, right? There's nothing to be done. But I would respect your craft. But when I say I don't understand, that doesn't mean talk louder at me, right? And that doesn't mean talk more sternly to me. I'm not very receptible to that. I'm saying you're not good at your stuff. If you can help me understand this to a point where it's I go, okay, right? Because you and I have had to do this in corporate boardrooms where people have warned us, don't go in and gloss these guys over. They want to know, are you saving me money? Are you costing me money? Or what's the difference in between? Okay, that's what we're going to do. And so something's with my AC unit. And as one of my mentors told me a long time ago, she said, Edward, if I asked you the question twice, I already know the answer. Right? I'm asking these guys, and they still blowing smoke up my ass. I'm like, dude, that's not how it works. I mean, the internet even says that it's not how it works. What are you trying to do? And had they been honest with me and said, yeah, we made a mistake, it's going to be really costly and time consuming and disruptive to go back and do this. What can we do to this? I might have accepted it. And once you can get me to accept the variation, then you're off the hook, right? Because I've got customers say, give me a little relief on my hourly rate going forward, or give me a refund. And this is within tolerance. We'll accept it and we'll go forward because it's not going to adversely affect us. You just didn't deliver 100%. When you say that didn't get that. So that's got a hair in my ass right now. And I'm going to handle this, right? But other than that, it's done. Now the hard part comes because my wife has got me unpacking every box. I'm doing this. I'm moving furniture. I'm putting tables. I'm doing all this other stuff, right? So that's on the personal side. Anything personal on your side before I get into the
No, that's okay.
All right, so let me tell you what's happening on the thing. So I got pulled into let me use the new acronym and then the old moniker, right? So I got pulled into a Microsoft Defender for identity engagement, Azure Advanced Threat Protection for the old one, right? And if you really want to go back, Advanced Threat Analytics. And I don't do it a whole lot, right? It's one of those technologies that is super solid, but you really don't want anything coming out of it because when you hear something coming out of it, you probably in a bad way. You really don't. You want it to be one of those things that you put it in and literally you won't hear anything else about it as long as it's working. Do you know what a GSMA account is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's a general service management account. It's sort of like a fancy term for a service account, but zero password. So you have this account to be able to do it. I sort of forgot that, and I can be frank, no pun intended. When I've deployed this, I've never used a GSMA account because the customer says, well, we use service accounts with passwords this long, right? Because you can't put multi-factor on those. You could, but who
That's not
wants
what they're
to?
for. Yeah.
Right. And so the Azure soft equivalent is managed identities, right? No passwords, and then you can put the secret in Key Vault. So the customer, I'm like, what? I'm like, it's in the settings and give us best practices for setting this up. I'm like, sir. And this goes back to why I'm so aggravated at these folks working in my basement. I told the customer, I'm not sure. I've never done it this way. The customers I've worked with have done it this way, or they've implemented a thing, whatever. And the customers appreciate it. So I went back and I looked. I said, I know what you got going on here. Yeah. So they said, well, based on what you read, what should we do? I said, well, you can follow the best recommendations. And if you guys want to deviate from just your template that you use for service accounts, because they literally have service accounts with some form of two-person control, auditing on who changed the password can never be changed by the actual account itself. And the password is literally that long, and they keep accounts on it, but they wanted to get away from doing that to try to get more streamlined because they want to get keyboard. The customer was appreciative of that. So he said, oh, by you not doing it, it must not be a lot of customers doing it. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean that, because I'm a small data set. That just means I haven't done it that way. So I not only helped the customer, but I learned something at the same time, right? So we end up getting implemented, and then the things I did know about, I helped them through it, and they got it up and running. And then, it takes about 2 weeks to a month to trend to get the database heuristics. I learned something else about it too. I'm asking you a trivia question. So if I think you've deployed it. If you've ever deployed Microsoft Defender for Identity, and for those who are on our podcast who don't know what it is, or Twitch, it is Microsoft's identity protection, particularly around privileged identities and things that look to attack your authentication fabric or framework. Pass the hash, skeleton key, golden
Or Active
key,
Directory specifically.
Active Directory is specific. So have you ever deployed it? Have you ever been on it where you deployed it? I think you have, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you deploy it across one domain controller, where's that database maintained for all the training and everything? Is it actually in the controller, in the because everything's in Azure now, controller and the so now I'm drawing a blank. Well, with the training heuristic database, is it on a domain controller, or is it on the aspects of the MongoDB that is based on in the cloud? The short answer is in cloud. If I deploy one and build up a database and it trends over 30 days, if I deploy 10 more, do I have to retrain for 30 days?
So my answer always is, hey, I'm over 50 years old and I haven't done it in the last week. Let me go research it.
Yeah, the answer is you don't.
Right.
Because it's not centralized to the domain controller. So as you add the domain controllers, they are instantly aware of what has happened already, right? And so it's not an all-in technology either. You just have gaps in your armor if you don't have it on, because Murphy's Law says the one domain controller that they go after is the one that you don't have this on, right? But if they're doing something with the way AD is situated, the domain controllers in a healthy environment with correct subnetting on premise should be talking anyway. So anything that's happening, they're doing lateral movements. So if they're going to laterally move, they're going to hit one of your trip wires unless they decide to launch all their attacks specifically, from that single domain controller, right? And the reason this is important, I tell our listeners, security will never be taken over 100% by machines, AI, machine learning, all this advanced jargon during our lifetime. You and I'll be dead when it finally goes that way. And I'll tell you why. Because machines assume a perfect environment with operational constraints that have no error introduced. I think man is the only species of animal that can deliberately do bad stuff to itself consciously, like red cup, right? There's nothing good in this red cup, but I feel good, so I'm going to do it. So when you look at the technology, you still need a human to be able to come in and understand what you are seeing in what is happening there. And that's the reason I believe that you still need to have very skilled hunters. And you called this when I met you 2.5 years ago. Hunting is a skill set that can be laid out in resume requirements, job listings. are you proficient in hunting? And no, I don't mean penetration testing, right? I think hunting is going to be more in line to purple, right?
Right.
Because I'm going to give you access to my environment. I'm not asking you to break it. I'm asking you to hunt within it, right? So I'm going to give you a feel to say, within this operational constraint, I need you to go in and find this. Penetration meaning I may or may not give you anything. I want you to try to break my defenses.
So here's the thing that drives me crazy. So one of the reasons why I want you to take Forensics 508 is that will help you with hunting. Okay. Mm-hmm. But here's what drives me crazy is that what is threat hunting? Because basically a lot, I hear some Microsoft people say, well, if you get an IOC and then you go look for it in your environment, that's threat hunting. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Really?
I do. Because you have an IOC and you're looking for a known entity.
But you are looking for a known
entity, hunting. I think that there's a fine line between pen testing, because the pen testers may be looking at something you don't know about or you don't know you have. If I had hair, I'll pull one out and just splitting hairs, right? I think the differentiator between hunting and pen testing, and there's one more, vulnerability assessments. It is.
So we are talking, when I say hunting, I'm actually talking something slightly different I'm actually talking about hunting. I see people looking at hunting in two ways. Ones that are proactive hunters looking for patterns or things that they're hearing about, versus hunting where they say, hey, we've got this new IOC, let's go see if it's in our environment, and they consider that hunting. Well, I don't actually consider that hunting.
What are folks who make a life on bug bounties? Are they hunters?
Are they hunters?
I mean, are they vulnerability / pen testers who can find stuff that hasn't been identified yet and they get paid bug bounties?
So that's different than the defender side versus the attacker side. So they are the attacker side trying to find the issues.
Well, let's put it out to our listeners. You and I opinions are nothing more than that, and perceptions. So it's really based on what you do and how you perceive stuff. I think this is one of those things that maybe we get some type of poll that we put in that we say,
we'll say, is Frank right or is Frank right?
Is water wet or is water less dry? I don't know. All right, man. So unless you have something that you want to talk about interesting in your adventures in cybersecurity, we can get to our podcast.
Or the meat of the podcast.
The meat. Oh, one other thing. Be very careful when you buy Cisco Meraki licensing, right? They will allow you to buy the newer licensing for the newer appliances, and they will not work against your old appliances.
Hey, Edward, I'm actually hearing an echo. 1 second. Keep talking.
Be very careful when you buy Meraki licenses for your devices, because they will allow you to buy newer licenses for old devices, but the newer license will not work against your old devices. So I've been on a tech support call. You'd have thought I asked these guys to, do something with time travel. What's the thing in Star Trek? They always can sense you a time travel when they see gamma radiation, chronotons or something like that. Like, golly, man, just give me a license. I pay for the newer one, which is more expensive. Just downgrade it to a lesser one. I'm not even asking for a refund. I don't care. I made a mistake. Well, we can't do that. Why not? Well, you can buy the newer devices. We can apply to it. You can go jump in a frozen lake head first. Right? I'm not going to do that. One I have works really good. I just spend too much money. I'm telling you to keep the money and just downgrade my license. And man, anyway, something easier. Exam taking.
All right. So anybody in the chat interested in the exam SC-200 Microsoft Security Operations Analyst? Anyone?
Me?
You? Yeah. Okay. So this is our main topic for the podcast. Okay, so yes, we have people interested in this. MS500, SC-900. Yeah, there's going to be a the MS500 versus the SC-200. Something we could definitely talk about, the different security exams. So Microsoft just announced 4 new security exams: SC-200, SC-300, SC-200, which is the security operations analyst; SC-300, which is identity; SC-400, which is compliance; and SC-900, which is security fundamentals. MS500 is the Microsoft 365 security, which does include security, identity, and compliance information. And then there's the AZ500, which is the Azure security engineer. So tonight I want to talk about the skills measured in the SC-200. So, I mean, there is a lot of overlap with SC-500, but MS-500, but SC-200 is much more in depth. So when they go out to create a certification, you can read this on the Microsoft Learns blog. What they start off with is a JTA session, or a job task analysis session. So I was actually involved with all 4 of the SC new certifications, JTAs. The interesting thing is that, so after the JTA, it goes out to blueprinting, where they do a survey of everyone. You can go out yourself and take a survey, and they kind of decide what is the most important parts of someone's job. And then after that, it goes into the exam creation and the learning content creation. So when you're out on the exam page, you'll see that they have the skills measured, which I call the OD, but this is actually what they're going to be measuring. And we'll talk about the exam here in a second. And they're also now putting out learning paths for these specific exams. Now, the interesting thing is that I was actually the main courseware author for SC-200, and I can talk about developing courseware and some of the interesting things involved with doing that. But since I was actually the main courseware author, I'm not allowed to actually write exam questions for SC-200. So I don't know I don't know the questions on the exam. So I feel free to be able to talk about what's being measured here and give you some information about the skills measured.
So
go ahead.
So one thing is, some of our listeners may be going, well, why is this important, right? You know, I'm a person like to say, what's to get and what's to give and what's the value before we start getting into it, right? Because a lot of them are saying,
Edward, I'm gonna have to pause you for 1 second.
Okay. So a lot of our skills,
Hello?
our customers, I can still hear you. There you go. To our listeners, and this is the nuances of working from home, guys, and having to do this, right? But anyway, you're probably saying, why do I care about what went into the building of the exam? It gives you an insight on how they build this out. So when you are taking this, it won't give you the answer, but it'll also give you some insight on what they deem as important about this. So the job task analysis is a measure of what is the product you're going to be using day to day, or doing a deployment and setup, and it allows you to be able to look at that rather than going in and start trying to learn some obscure oddities within a test or within the function of a product, right? These are common criteria against what most customers who are going to adopt the product are going to do on the deployment and the day-to-day operation and maintenance of it. So it's important to understand why these percentages are what they are. I remember when I first started taking exams way back in the day when the MCSE was the thing. And I failed my first NT4 workstation exam, and I was devastated. And then I went back to the place I was training. The guy said, the reason you fail, Edward, is because you went in there and tried to prove what you know, rather than understanding the objective of the exam. And if the exam says 1 + 1 is 11, it's 11. Regardless of what you know it is, it's 11. And so when you go in and you look at these, I have a huge appreciation for those who go in and try to make these exams relevant. Now, for those who saw me on here being rude to Frank and I had to calculate out writing, I noticed that there was an 80% discount on taking these exams. And an exam is 165. I did the math. That means you can take it for $33.
I think they've already sold out because there's only 300 codes. And I think they might have already hit that. So.
Oh, well, I was telling everybody, I'm a big advocate of you can never fail an exam, ever, unless you can't take it anymore. Right? So some people get beat over the head and they feel bad. Like, man, I took it and I failed. You didn't fail. You just didn't pass. Right? Go schedule it again. And I know it can be expensive, but for $33 per exam, if you can get it until you eventually pass, you spend the $33 to invest in yourself, right? Because now you're getting used to it. Because we don't take exams all the time, and exam taking is 50% how to take the exam and 50% on what's on the exam, right? Especially, God, show me your desk up underneath. Show the above. Make sure there's nothing around you when you're taking them at home, right? So I'm a big advocate of prepping for the exam. So if I had to spend $33 just to go through and knock on glass, if I pass the first time, woohoo! If I don't, it's $33. Now I know what to expect the next time around. So don't ever think you fail something until you can't try again. Go ahead, Frank. I just want to do that. I did the math, man.
Yep.
If there are any left, go sign up and register the test for March 8th, which gives you enough time. Don't register it and think you got to take it right away. Push it to the very end. And that way you got study time. And if you don't, it's $33. Who cares?
Yeah. So when you take these exams, so this is a beta, but even when it's out of beta, just to let you know, when you first log in and take the exam, they say, how do you feel? Are you an expert? Are you, just beginning with this or whatever? Answer that honestly. The other thing is when you're going through the test and they give you the ability to leave comments, definitely leave comments. I do a lot of question reviews for different exams, and this is very important to help mature the test. So give an example. Let's say 90% of the people that say they're experts get a question wrong. Okay. Then they're like, okay, these people are experts. They're getting the question wrong. Let's send this question for review because that doesn't make sense. Right. Especially during the beta, they're going to eject questions that might've been, against you because it's no longer deemed valid. So it's going to help you with your score. Also, leaving comments is very important because the reviewers will say, oh, what are they saying? How did they see this, or what were they confused about? How can we make this more clear? Even from the international standpoint, sometimes things get, slipped through that are to, maybe US based terminology. So then that can be cleaned up. So please pay it forward by, filling out the comments and being honest about your level of understanding of the technology, because Microsoft takes all that very seriously, and especially during the beta here, for you to go out and take this and provide that feedback.
Yeah. Let me tell you something else. And this is not a guarantee, but this is my experience, and I don't know if it's an oddity, but it's happened to me twice. So I didn't pass a couple. And in the comments, I wrote, blah, 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 blah. This is the reason I think that this question is ambiguous, misleading, so-and-so, so-and-so. This could be better. There's more than one way to do this. You didn't give enough answers to it. And then I did this. In the comments, I said, huge fan, believe that this provides value. Would like for you to give me a credit to take it. Sure enough, to my email address, got a voucher. Now, they're not going to overturn your exam. You can write to your blue in the face to overturn it. But I got a credit twice. I mean, not a credit, but a code.
Really?
Yes. They sent me a code, and I went and took the exam, and I went and took it at ATG or something. So don't think that someone's not reading it. Ask for it. Say, hey, I did this right here. I've been doing this, blah, 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 blah. Please issue me a voucher to be able to go take this. One I got for 50% off and one I got for 100% off. So somebody's reading it.
Oh, no, they're definitely reading. I sometimes leave comments just so I can review my own comments later, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, very much. Now, I'm sure you did that.
So let's take a look at the bigger skills measured here. And the other thing that I want you to keep in mind is that this exam was probably written back in December. So think about how much has changed in the product since December. After this, we'll go through a review, but then after that, I think every single 2 months, they'll be redoing the questions. So just keep in mind, like the unified portal was not there at the time. So keep that in mind. And when you're going to take this beta exam right now. But what came out of this was the 25, 30% of the test is going to be scored for Microsoft 365 Defender. 25, 30% is Azure Defender, and 40, 45% is Azure Sentinel.
Mm-hmm. And to our listeners who like, I'm so tired of this Microsoft there. Microsoft 365 Defender is Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection that was then turned to Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is now Microsoft 365 Defender. Azure Defender used to be Azure Security Center, which is now Azure Defender, and Azure Sentinel used to be called Azure Security Insights.
It's still in the URL, still the solution. So,
yeah.
So one of the things I want to point out here is that, and we'll do another podcast specific to the learning content, but you'll see that, and we're going to dive into the skills measured under each one of these. But what's interesting here is that the learning paths you actually have for Defender for, it starts with Defender for Endpoint, and that's actually 10 modules. And then Learning Path 2 is actually Microsoft 365 Defender. So even though this is 25, 30%, when you come in here and take a look, when I went and wrote the material, I had a few things that I had to make sure. I had to do a gap analysis on covering what's in the skills measured.
Shameless plug. When I wrote the material.
Most of the material, and we'll talk about why it's most of the material. But this course is actually, so anybody that knows me can understand why Learning Path 1 is actually Defender for Endpoint. So, but the thing is that when they came to me and said, okay, we want people that are actually going to be using this on a day-to-day basis to know how to do their job. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this material is more set up. Yeah, it does have to cover what's in the skills measured for the most part, but it's really designed for people that have to go and do their job using the Microsoft security technologies. Now, I heard people saying, hey, why isn't it doing basic security stuff? Why isn't it doing this or whatever? Because we do not want to, reinvent the wheel. You can go to other places to get that sort of training. Mm-hmm. This is specific. Hey, you're a SOC analyst, and you actually have to use these Microsoft tools to do your job. So that's why this is actually broken out the way that it is. So you'll see that this does not actually match. Look, you have one entire learning path on Defender. Shouldn't that be 20% of the test exams questions? That's not the case. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish. I want to highlight something out. I'm taking notes so I don't lose my train of thought to highlight on something. Go ahead.
So there's some. So I was only one of many in the JTA. So the funny thing is that, they. When we say Microsoft 365 Defender, they actually kind of think of that as Microsoft 365 E5 because you actually have a lot of Azure Active Directory stuff that's not really considered Microsoft 365 Defender rolled up into this, okay? Mm-hmm. Because it's the best place to put it, right? For working with it. So just to let you know that you'll have, even though we're saying Microsoft 365 Defender, is Azure Active Directory Identity Protection truly Microsoft 365 Defender?
No.
Right. So that's going to be rolled up in here because it was the best place to put it. Okay.
So let me give you a little something about this, right? And this is no slight to you or any other folks that write the exam, because I know how you artists and creators are about your stuff, right? You're very critical. When they give you these things in here, I don't like the description of what the percentages of what the particular learning and testing sessions are. Let me tell you why. In my humble opinion, which is highly opinionated facts, I think that most exams are two fail, two not, at least one non-pass and then one pass, right? And now, if you're an expert, then passing is because you just have so much innate experience and you've been beating on a product that even if a question is dumb, you sort of know what they're doing, right? And like, I know what they're asking because I'm finding the most right answer. But look at this. Detect, investigate, respond, remediate Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive for business threats. What the hell does that mean? I mean,
So
acknowledge an alert?
I think that what you have to look at here is a subsection here,
Yeah.
which is specific to Microsoft Defender Office 365. So they're talking about
It's interpretation. So let's go to. I'm going to pull out one from each one of these sections, right? And this is because I love the product. I'm a Microsoft homer. Right? I love the products, and they're great at what they do, and their other stuff. But let me give you another one. Access and recommend insider risk policies.
assess.
What does that mean? I mean, the risk policy for insider threat for financial services is not the same risk insider set necessarily for, farmer and stuff like that. So
okay, so let's come back here and say who this person is, right? Because we had to draw lines, right? It's like, okay, you are not the person that's rolling. You're not the person that's doing the endpoint deployment. You're not the person that's setting up Azure AD sync, between on-prem and cloud, right? You're not the person doing that setup. You are sitting on the SOC and you get an alert. Okay. How are you responding to that? Okay. That was the reason for, so that's one of the reasons why it's not bad to take MS 500 or AZ 500 in there, because they're more about configuring. Now that does not mean that those configure questions are not going to be on the test. Okay.
Let's yes, right.
Because I know how test questions are written. Unfortunately, any of these, so you have detect, investigate, respond, and remediate threats. I mean, that's going to be the main theme that you're going to see throughout here. Unfortunately, question writers, they say, hey, let me go to Defender for endpoint. Now, anything in the docs there and inside the UI to them is fair game to write questions against. Unfortunately.
And that's okay. And and one time or another, I had anywhere between 35 and 50 certifications, right? Vendor agnostic, Microsoft, and everything else. Some of them were easy. I think the highest I ever got to a premier certification is that I passed the CCIE written and never had time to go take the lab. I don't know if I would have passed it or not, but something came up and I couldn't go. Juniper, JNIS, you name it, when I came from the route switch. So exams are what they are. It's a static snapshot of what they believe is common level knowledge to perform and pass a certification based on what we perceive as an adequate skill level and, job proficiency to say you can do this, right? I've gone to some exams and thought I should have scored 115 and scored like 52, relatively speaking, right? Passing was 700, I go like 550. I mean, I might have an exam that came up and the final said, you did not pass, or you even in IT. You did so bad, right? But so I don't want to get hung up on that. What I would tell, matter of fact, I love folks achieving and feeling good about their job, which makes the overall cybersecurity Phaeton and our peers much better. I love meeting smart people and going there and learning things from other people. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna put Franklin on a hot seat with me. For all of our listeners, whether you have used the code or not, if you go out and you take the SC, and what is this, 200?
200.
And you pass the exam, the Microsoft Security Insights podcast will pick up the cost of your exam for 4 people. Here's the catch. You have to give one of the 5 phrases or words that I absolutely hate. That means that you've been listening to the podcast. When I hear this, I'm like,
Oh man.
don't say that. So say, hey, I passed, and here's one of the 5 phrases or catchphrases Ed, that absolutely makes your hair, no hair, stand on end, and pop us an email to it. We'll pick up the cost of your exam. Right? Actually, I tell you this.
And my email has a dash in it. Go ahead. No, I'm
It
kidding.
has a dash. You go take it, and even if you don't pass, we'll pick it up. Right? But you got to give us a catchphrase. Either something Frank hates talking about on the
Oh, my
podcast
goodness.
or something I hate. We'll pick up the first 4 that submit proof that they took it. Either you passed or you didn't. Remember, you
Well,
can't fail.
it's a beta. They don't know if they passed or failed.
What? It's still in beta?
Yep.
Oh, so I'm playing with house money. They still have to pay even though it's in beta.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, man. I've been helping with this stuff, and I'm an MCT and all this other stuff. I don't know when the last time I paid for an exam, right? I generally get them, right? And I go take them. So when the thing comes out of beta, as we get more listeners, I will keep that there. We will pick up the first 4 individuals that either pass it or not pass it, and can send us at least one catchphrase that Franklin absolutely hates to talk about in the podcast, or me. Franklin doesn't have as many as I do. Right? You know, when Franklin says a couple of things, he triggers me. I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about this, right? Because I want our peers to go out.
Or you can tell my least favorite products from Microsoft. All right, so back to this.
Go ahead.
All right, so you want to pull up. So this
Yo,
is
one more. Let's go down to the. I'm very.
So
quick.
this is Defender Office
All right,
365.
let's go down to the next one. All right.
So this is Defender for Endpoint. You agree that has to be in here, right?
Yeah. So we go. It goes. You know, most of them were good, but the one that I did not like was. Well, here's the thing. We talked about this. Anything that says identify. That's relative. I mean,
Where's identify on this one?
well, you see down in the other one, it says detect, investigate, respond, and remediate identity threats. It says identify, remediate. You know,
Right,
I love things like configure. And,
right. So I have to say that I don't actually, I actually don't like the conditional access events. I mean, that's not really.
Yeah,
I hope they
I
didn't
don't like
write
any
any
question
questions
that
about
says
that.
identify, right? Because if this is a SOC, and I know this is a SOC analyst, so identification is part of your day job. But I like things that sort of bleed over to the 500 exams. Configure.
Yeah. I would actually just worry about the word remediate here versus identify.
Yeah.
Going through that.
Okay.
There's
Cloud
your
app
least
security.
favorite product right there, MCAS.
Yeah, man, my absolutely favorite product. And you know, I'm still going to say, take identify out. I like investigate, remediate, security risk, because identify is nothing more than alerts. Right? If I don't get an alert, how would I identify?
I don't know why identify is in there, because that's the product itself is doing the identifying.
Bingo. That's what I was trying to get to. I love actionable intelligence and actionable insights to say go in these things.
And these skills measured actually get redone. I think I don't know how often they get redone. They actually do get redone also. Mm-hmm. So that might change.
I love this one. Plan and configure, access and recommend. Right. Love that. And then you come down to the other one. Identify data sources to be ingested by Azure Defender. What does that mean? Every connector? You know, every workload? I mean, that's not really a SOC analyst. That's advisor or consultant to come in and get you operational and then hand off.
Yeah.
And once again, this is no
well, I mean, let me ask. I mean, I have to say that, you know, yeah, you want to identify the data that you want.
Mm-hmm. Like if you come down 3 more, connect AWS cloud resources. You know why I like that? There's 6, maybe 7 things you do. I mean, the number may be off, but you can say, out of these things you've done, what is, and don't be that person that says, what is step 5? Just says, What are the 5 steps to be able to do this? Or what 3 things you do? Because when you configure it, you'll know, oh, they forgot to create an IAM, token on the AWS side to be able to allow us to query and pull back the API from the CloudTrail stuff. If you've done it, you know exactly what they're talking about, right? Right? Configure data collection. Even though data collection is ambiguous, you're configuring data collection. So it's going to say, what are the 2 places that you may need to collect data from? Azure or non-Azure workloads, right? That's not giving away anything on the test. It's just letting you know that there are multiple ways to be able to do it. Now, if someone says,
I think this configured data collection has more to do with what events you're actually collecting.
yeah.
So from there.
And to our listeners, I haven't taken an exam. I'm going to take it.
I just had to write the learning material against what's here. So, I mean, or do the gap analysis for it.
Mm-hmm.
How about the manage Azure Defender alert rules?
Yeah, I think that's valid, and I'll tell you why. Managed security alerts are telling you what to do with it. Do you turn it into an incident, or do you turn it into a rule? Those are the type of things you would ask. Do you turn it into a custom rule, or do you convert it into it? Do you take that and then do you understand how to convert it into a playbook / logic apps? Those are things that you can do, right? Like respond to an Azure Defender for Key Vaults alert. Fail. I've never had to respond to an Azure Defender Key Vault alert, ever. I know that if I get an alert, someone's trying to access my secrets, or maybe do something, right? But I've never done it, and I consider myself an expert. Manage user data discovered during an investigation. Now that is applicable because that is sort of bleeding over to IR, right? Right.
Yeah, but I mean, let's go back to the Key Vault alerts. Respond to Azure Defender for Key Vault alerts. The bottom line is that inside docs.microsoft.com, they actually have about 3 or 4 different scenarios that they provide you playbooks on. And so that's why that's probably listed there. Once again, not that I have taken the test, decided to write the learning material. So yeah, there is actually docs related information about like 3 or 4 different scenarios, and that's actually one of them.
Yeah.
All right. So now on to something you know something about.
Sentinel? I don't know anything about Sentinel, right? Playing an Azure Sentinel workspace. Okay. I would probably get that question wrong because I would overthink it. Because I'm having partners build MSSP offerings. So am I having multi-workspace? Am I using Lighthouse? Am I single workspace? Am I using an existing workspace because we're using Azure Monitor before then? But then you got to go back and key it in. Remember, they're asking you that you've never had any of the other workloads. It's assuming that Sentinel's by itself. You haven't used any of these other line technologies before. So keep it simplistic, right? So that is a good question. Plan an Azure workspace, and there are a huge amount of docs to do it. Configure Azure Sentinel roles. RBAC a little bit funky because there's still stuff coming out about contributor roles and what you need and how I do these things, but they won't go into that depth. That's really deeper, and don't overthink that. Design Azure Secure data storage.
Why do you think they won't go into that?
I think that when you start going into roles, you're assuming that the person has a robust RBAC or RACI type of mentality about how you can do it. And that's within limitations because you can only do so much. I don't think full RBAC capability down to the table level exists, I think, or the data type. Maybe table, but not the data type, log type. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not giving anything away. I've not taken this exam. But from when I've gone out to a customer, this is what customers have asked me. We have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 should be able to see this. Tier 2 should be able to see this. Tier 3 should be able to see this.
So even in the learning material, we actually go over.
Yeah, reader, responder, contributor. Right.
So I can tell you as a question writer, this is one of the easiest things to write questions against.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if there's questions out there.
Well, I'm just saying, but you got a table. Right. So if you go in and you do the table, I mean, you wrote against something that's there and not speculative, right? I'm just saying I haven't taken the exam. So maybe I should go take it and answer that I'm a novice across all this stuff, right? So
no, don't do that. Don't do that. All right. So
I don't know.
Plan and implement the use of data connectors for ingestion of.
That's one of my strongest things that I do, right? I'm a networking guy. So syslog and CIF and data ingestions, and that's sort of built into me, man. I came from the TFTP background and Kiwi and Syslog and Snort, and that's what I do. So if I go through that session, I'm probably not going to miss a question, right? Because I just understand networking and data ingestion, so that's easy for me, right? Now, analytic rules I'm really solid at, so I can get through that pretty good. It's one of my favorite things, the analytic rules in Sentinel. I'll probably blow through that. The next one, I'm weak, right? I wasn't a huge Logic Apps and Power Automate guy, or Microsoft Flow is what it was called. So I would struggle a little bit there, right? On understanding that. Now, if it's just how to do these things and why they are important and how you combine this with stuff, I understand the concepts, but I'm not as strong as some of my peers in the automation piece, right? Because a lot of the SIM stuff from other providers, those are add-ons. Those are skill sets in themselves, right? Where you have responders in a SOC, and then you have automation people and response people and semi-IR people. So I'm weak in that. Incidents, I'm pretty good, especially Yuba. I'm all about, user entity behavior, right? Because I came from a place where we looked at majority report type stuff. If you do this, and that, why are you quacking like a duck, swimming like a duck, flying like a duck, dumping like a duck, but you're not a duck, right? So I'm really good at that type of stuff. Workbooks, I'm good at that, right? Because I'm starting to get better at KQL up under your toolage, right? So I'm understanding that I can take a workbook and learn KQL just by hitting the edit and expanding the JSON and the stuff, and you go, that's why it looks like this in the virtualization, right? The visualization piece. And the hunting in Azure Sentinel, I'm pretty good at that. So my weakness in Sentinel personally are around SOAR and notebooks, right? You are stronger in Python and Juniper stuff than I am, so that's still a learning operation for me.
I want to show you something interesting. Did you ever anywhere do you see the word KQL?
Nope. No Custo.
Right, which is kind of, so there's a lot of implied things here. Like if you're going to write a scheduled rule, then you need to know how to do KQL, right? So that's why, even though it's not there, you still have the KQL learning path here, because they do expect you to know KQL, because you can't do some of these things, workbooks and other things, without knowing KQL.
So let me give a kudos out to those modules for KQL. I don't know who did those. They're not bad.
These?
Yeah, they're actually pretty good. And I've gone through them, and my recommendation to our listeners is don't copy and paste into the query window in Sentinel. Type it out. Type the commands out and understand what the operators and parameters are, and then go take a query that's already there. And if you really want to learn it, take a simple query and understand every syntax and command and operator. I mean, really just take a real simple one and say, what is security lens? What is inverse? What table does it pull from? And then go down each one. Then get you a complicated one, and build your knowledge by disassembling one that's already existing. Like, what does let mean? What is the time frame operator? What is the condition of one day? Why is a semicolon there significant? Why I have a hard bracket and a open bracket? Why am I piping every line with where? I can't put them on the same line. Once you can understand these things, like if you get down to HTTP code status, extract so-and-so, that's regular expression, right? So understanding what's the first line outside of parentheses before you started getting into, well, why are they going TCP underscore parentheses?
Right. So don't copy. I can tell you, we are still cleaning up.
Yeah, don't copy.
Word to Markdown to learn content. There's probably going to be a post in the next few days to clean up even more things. Plus, you get the quotes, you get weird characters or whatever. But the bottom line is you're just going to learn more by typing it in yourself and going through. So, so the answer is yes, I did write this.
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving you. But I tell folks, and then What are you a big fan of Node++? I'm a big fan of VS Code now, right? Do everything in VS Code and save it. And this is like you got to put time in it. You know, one of the things, and Frank, you're a super senior. I'm super senior. We've been doing this for a while. We tend to go to in a 20 chapter book. We tend to go to page 10 because we're so experienced. That's bad habits. Start at 1, even if you know it, and able to erase the bad habits. I learned KQL the bad way, very bad.
And this KQL here is not everything KQL like the other tutorials out there. This is the KQL that you'll be using. You know, the 80-20 rule. You know, 80% of the time these are the operators you're going to be using doing your job. That other, you know, all the other ones out there, you can figure them out as you go. So one of the things that you'll notice here is that, like, under connect syslog data sources, I actually have, hey, how do you actually go ahead and parse out, you know, the unstructured data coming in from the syslog standpoint. So there's a lot of little details about that throughout here. And I can talk more about writing the content and some of the choices I made in the course structure and some of the challenges that I have in doing this and so on. But that's for another podcast.
And that's called functional learning and task-oriented learning, meaning that what am I learning is going to help me in my job rather than for the sake of learning. Now, I'm a sake of learning guy because I read some obscure stuff that has nothing to do with what I do for a living, but I'm a lifetime learner. It's like I consider myself in fairly good shape. The only thing that I do that doesn't lend to me, I lift weights by going in the back and chopping wood. So at the end of me chopping wood, I got wood left, right? Or I build something, where some folks like to go to the gym and lift. Now, recreational and functional stuff, I'm a big marathoner. So I'm running miles, and miles doesn't help me do anything else. Doesn't have cardio climbing up and down the stairs. But I just don't like getting up under a bench and lifting weights. If I got to go do something, my wife said, "What are you doing?" I'm going to go outside and build a retention wall. Oh, okay. In the end, I got to work out. What I'm trying to correlate this to is that KQL module says, learn how to do this self in so-and-so. So when you learn that, not only did you learn KQL functional operators, you can solve a problem and you can do a task, right? I'm never going to say, use KQL to automate an Azure DevOps pipeline to distribute this. Man, I'm not doing that. I don't work in Azure DevOps. I deploy Ceph and syslog servers all day long, and I do these things. I'm going to go learn this KQL. Now, if I get to a point where they say, well, you need to do some CI, CD stuff, then I'll go learn it for that, right? So I'm very task-oriented on my learning now. So I love this module, and, you know, not because you and I are buddies, but it's one of the better modules, the KQL stuff, right? It really is.
I want to show you something else here. So over here in this module, what's interesting is I actually list the Azure Sentinel tables, right, and what their purpose is. Then I go over some of the common tables that you're expecting to come across. Hey, look, they actually fixed this already. That's good. So my updates are out there. And then I actually go into the Microsoft 365 Defender tables that you'll actually be working with. So, yeah, I mean, and these are the sort of things that if I was writing questions, I would actually be hitting you up on in there.
Have you completed this already? So click continue. I'm going to do a knowledge check and see if I know anything. All right. Which table stores Defender endpoint login events? I don't know. Device login events? Which table contains log from Windows host corrected security events? And which table stores alert from Defender for endpoint for alerts? I don't know, security alerts. How about that? And check the answers. There you go. So I know a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, remember these questions are not at the level of the exam questions. I can.
Yeah, I know, but it's the terminology you got to get used to because they sound alike. Like you got the same answer for almost all three of them.
Right.
But if you don't know where they go.
the biggest thing is that you have to realize is that, alerts are going here. So, there's the whole thing about the connectors, which tables do the connectors actually write to, and so on. And once again, you have to remember when all of this was written in there. So, yeah. So I'm actually, there's the learn content. There's actually instructor-led training that will be coming out, which has a little bit different content, but mainly the same. But most importantly, when you're talking about being able to do things, I can tell you right now that the instructor-led training has over 50 tasks that you'll do during the instructor-led training to go and do all of this work.
Yeah, you're MCT, Microsoft Certified Training, so am I. So I'm looking for the mock stuff to come out. I'm anticipating that. I want to see it. I don't know if I'd teach it. Right, it's time for me to actually go teach a course. So maybe if the opportunity presented itself, come up to speed.
Well, I think that you have to. Here's what I think about training. Okay, is that remember when we had Nathan Swift on, right?
Yep.
And he had that blog post out and doing that really cool thing, and at the end, what it provided you. And I looked at it, I'm like, okay, here's all the learning objectives or the learning building blocks that he's using to get the task done. Right. So whenever you learn something new, you have to realize that the people that are learning it, it's all kind of gray for them. Right. So my goal is to get them through this gray area to understand how the product is working and all the different building blocks. Then once they actually get through that, they'll actually be able to learn everything else really fast. Right. So I have to look at what content and tasks can I have them do that once they do that, they're going to actually understand everything and then do accelerated learning. When they go out and read a Rod Trent blog post, boom, they're going to pick up on it in 2 seconds on what he's doing. Right.
First of all, to read a Rod Trent's post, you need a Rosetta Stone, but then you get, shit is so hard.
Come on.
Golly, I'm like, golly, the dude is so smart, man. I'm like,
but realistically speaking, I want people to go through this learning material, do the labs to be able to look at a Rod Trent most complex post and say, okay, I understand what he's doing.
Yeah, and that's fair. And then to understand when they read one of my posts, they're really like, Ed doesn't know this ass from a hole in the ground, but I know what he's trying to say, right? So I love it when someone comes back and say, hey, man, you a little bit wrong on the last one. This is actually how it is. And I go, oh, you're right. Because I cover 5 products that I'm supposed to be expert on. No, that's not real world. So I make stuff up because I'm thinking about one thing and my mouth is saying one thing. And big shout out to Rod Trent. We're just giving you mess, man. We this is our sleight of hand by saying how great you are at writing stuff, man. And that's like, when you can understand Rod, you're a bad brother, right?
Don't mess with a $6 million man.
Don't mess with the $6 million man. What is $6 million now with current inflation?
I have no clue.
We need to look at that, right? I mean, he's 6 million. He had old technology now. We'll see. But hey, I think this is great on this. I think what we're trying to do is let everybody know that these exams are out there. They're great for litmus tests to understand if you're on the right path in your learning. There's always stuff to be learned from it. Don't ever be discouraged by not passing an exam. I know there's money involved, but anytime that you see a beta exam or you see something with a discount, get that code, go register, push it out as far as you can, and dedicate time to it. When I'm focused, and Frank can tell you when I'm serious or not, because when I was taking the exam, he could tell I was BSing on the first part of it. Then I got really serious on the back part of it. Put time to it. And not when you have time. Set up a dedicated time that I am studying right now. Not, oh man, when I get a break, I'm going to put an hour here. No, put a time and I'm going to do it right here. Right. That's how I do it. Like when I'm training for a marathon, I don't run when my day is free. When I have a training, here's an hour and a half that I train. I don't care. This is it. Right. Rather than, because if I have to wait to the end of the day when I'm not busy, Instead of me training, you know what I'm doing? There you go, right? Thanks again to all our listeners. I unfortunately did not have Twitch up on this computer because I don't know why I don't have it up. Computer's off for some reason. I don't know. I don't answer that. And we're always supportive of our listeners out there. I have equipment and junk, and if you need help setting up a lab with Azure and stuff, reach out. We sometimes have loaners. As long as you can give back to the security community, we can definitely, we love to have folks that are coming up in the ranks with stuff, right? Big shout out to our guests and friends of the show, Rod Trent, Nathan Swift, Rod Trent, Matt Egan, Andrea Fisher. We're looking to get more guests onto the show. So stand by for that as we get more security experts. We're also looking at doing a couple other things. I want to get some Microsoft partners who have a focus on security, especially those that have an MSSP focus. We're going to start trying to find some guests to come on. And a great idea that came up from Franklin about a roundtable. We want to get some of the friends of the show and industry experts and get everybody on here and just talk, right? Why should Gartner and Forrester and all these folks have all the fun? Let us talk about what we believe is trending and what is coming on, right? So this podcast / Twitch stream will grow as our listeners direct us. And I think we got some great things coming down. You can tell I'm in a better mood. My basement's finished. Woo-woo! I got these vendors out of my damn house. So let's see what happens from there, right?
All right.
Anything else from you, Frank?
That's it.
I got my cool ring light.
I'm going to get my day started now. So
your day is going to get started. Oh, man, it's almost my bedtime.
all right. Until next week.
Until next week.